This is going to be my first trip of 2023 season. Winds are out of the northwest, about 15 miles an hour, so that plays a lot into the decision I made of where I'm going to go. I wanted to be somewhere where the wind was coming off the shore, not exposed to a long stretch of water where the winds would build up and create a significant chop. I'm going to take you through a bit of the setup process of how I load the kayak here. So I've attached ropes to the forward cleats of the bed of my truck. Each of those ropes has a prusik knot on it with a carabiner in the loop. The carabiners are going to attach to loop tethers that I have on the right and left handle of my kayak. So once I attach the carabiner to the loop on the kayak, I'm going to tighten that prusik down, and those are going to hold the nose of the kayak tightly into the front of my pickup bed. It's a very secure system. The prusik knots are extremely stable and static, and really the only concern I have transporting this kayak is it sliding out the back, so that's going to prevent it. You'll also notice I have a blue ratchet strap that I put on the back cleats of the bed, and those are just for a safety mechanism in case one of the prusik's ropes fails, but I don't anticipate that happening. Also want to talk about what I'm wearing here. I'm wearing wader bottoms with their stocking foot bottoms, so I've got wading boots on, and my top here is a kayaking jacket. It's got neoprene waist, cuffs, and neck. They're all Velcro latch down, so in the event that I were to go into the water, this would keep me fairly dry, mostly dry, I would say. It's not a perfect dry suit, but it's very close, and I put a lot of trust in it. Now, water temps are below 50 degrees here, so it's important that you're prepared in case you go in the water, that you can stay dry, stay warm, and I've also got a couple of systems set up on the boat themselves in case I were to go in that would help me right the kayak and get back in it. I've got the kayak on a set of beach wheels here. I created a 2x4 frame just to help it fit better into the bottom of the hull. I noticed before I built the frame on it that the wheels would often go in a different direction than the bow of the kayak when I'm dragging it. So those 2x4s will fit securely into the bottom hull of the kayak and keep those wheels pointing in the same direction as the bow of the kayak as I move it to and from the water. The wheels probably needed to be inflated a little bit more. It was a rough drag, but it did the trick here. Now I'm just making my last preparations before getting on the water, so I hooked up the battery in the bow compartment of the kayak there. That's going to power everything. I've got a couple of lights on it and the fish finder there. So I hooked that up. I got my power on. I'm just going to make sure my truck is locked and head off onto the water here. Now you can see the water is pretty calm. Again, that wind is coming out of the north and I'm launching from a north bank. So the wind doesn't have any time to really create a chop here. But once I get out onto open water, it gets a lot more choppy and the wind's really howling. So you'll see that later on in the video. Just getting myself set here. I'm going to paddle out a little bit into just slightly deeper water where my pedal drive won't be dragging the bottom. So I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to set my GPS fish finder so that I can see it well. And I'm now working to drop the pedal drive into the water. Once that drive goes in the water, I'm going to put my paddle away and just start using my feet to get where I need to go. Now I'm going to paddle out and see what I can see out on the bay.
There is some bird activity off in the distance. Won't be able to see it on the camera, but I'm gonna get in there. I think I'll throw. Something small to start.
Once I got out on the bay, I saw some birds. They weren't heavily concentrated, but there were gulls here and there, and I saw some of them were diving, so I figured I'd get a bit closer after I tied on a 4-inch paddle tail. Now, I've gotten to the area where I saw the birds, but they were moving rather quickly. They'd pop up here and there and then disappear after a few seconds to a couple of minutes. So I'm in the area now where the birds were active, and once I got there I saw a couple of fish swirling. So I knew there was activity, I knew there was feeding going on, and now I'm starting my first few casts here with that paddle tail, see what I can find. So I'm in about 5 to 8 feet of water here, but there is a deeper channel just in front of my boat here. So I think most of the fish I caught were in 15 to 18 feet of water, and I believe the reason was that wind pushing the bait across the bay, and the fish were sitting on the lip where the deep water comes into shallow. That's where I caught most of the fish on this day. So I'm going to keep working this paddle tail where I'm seeing the birds, where I think I'm seeing fish swirl, and eventually I'm going to tie up into a fish, and then from there on I think I have the pattern figured out a bit, and I'll just continue to fish this way, paddle up into the wind, make some casts, and then reposition the boat back up into the deeper area where I'm catching fish. I'm just going to continue that process. You can see the wind's blowing pretty good in this spot, and it's hard to keep the boat pointed in one good direction, but with the pedal drive it makes it a lot easier to fish and move the boat at the same time. This is going to be the first bass that I landed on the day, and I immediately noticed that the fish had sea lice on it. It's really healthy looking fish, but the sea lice indicate the fish came from deeper water, so it's probably coming in from the ocean, coming into the bay to start finding that bait. This is really early in the season, but I'm in the western South Shore here, and that's usually where the fish start to show up first. So it makes a lot of sense. The fish came in from the ocean, probably fresh in, and it's the start of the spring here, so it's a good sign for things to come.
Get back. First one on the season.
So that fish went about 25 inches. You can see I'm now going to reset my position and get back into those birds. You can see the birds starting to crash over there, so I know there's activity. And I'm just going to go chase it down and start casting into it. I have a camera on top of my head as well, but after I got home I realized I didn't have it angled right, so couldn't really use any of the footage from that camera. But next trip I'll make sure I set the angle appropriately so that that camera can be useful. Now I'm going to hook into a fish here on my first cast at these birds. And you'll notice I start to drive the kayak forward and toward the fish, which can be dangerous. You want to keep that line tight. What eventually happened was I created a bit of slack in the line by pedaling towards the fish, and that gave it the opportunity to come off the hook. So just want to be mindful of that when you're hooked up with the fish. You want to keep that line tight, and if you're going to drive towards them or you're going to move the boat towards them, you want to be cranking down on that reel pretty hard. So it was a mistake, but you'll see I get right into another fish after that.
Popping up and moving.
this is just going to be another angle of landing that same fish here. So this is the camera mounted on the bow of the boat, and in the background there you can see the birds all up in the air, looking for the opportunity to dive on some bait. So now I'm just going to reposition again and start casting. So I'm in about 17 feet of water, and I'm definitely marking bass under the boat. A few times throughout the day I marked a lot of fish under my boat, but it didn't seem like they were very active. When I had a lot of marks under the boat, I would drop down and try to vertically jig those fish, but I was unsuccessful. It seemed that the best strategy here was to key in on the birds. The birds were giving away the actively feeding fish, and when I targeted those spots, I was tying into fish. So I think there were quite a few fish in the area, but only a certain percentage of those fish were actually feeding at the time. You know, looking back on this footage, I realized that most of my strikes came when the lure was paused. I didn't get many hits while I was actively bringing the lure in. You know, going forward, I'd probably work the lure a lot slower, factor in a lot more pauses to the retrieve. But coming up here, you'll see that I hook into the biggest fish I caught this day. It measured 31 inches, and it gave a pretty good fight. Nice fish. All right, so I'm going to give the bow angle of that same fish from the cast to all the way to the release here. All right, so from here on out, it's pretty much wash, rinse, repeat with the bass. The action lasted probably a good hour, hour and a half, and eventually the birds kind of dissipated and the fish marks vanished from the screen, and I headed back in. I had a good day, got a couple hours out, and I really can't complain. But I'm going to let the rest of this video play out, and you'll just see a few more fish. Like I said, that last one was the biggest on the day, but I'd say the fish range from 20 inches up to 31, and most of the fish were in the 24 to 26 inch range. I'm not going to show every fish I caught on the day, but I'll certainly show a few more. Also note, the sun came out for about 5 minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and when that sun did come out briefly, the action lit up pretty good. I don't know if that was the fish being able to see better, or if it was more just kind of a change in the pressure briefly, but it certainly was an active period, although very brief. But anyway, I'll let the rest of this video play out. Hope you enjoy, and I'll be posting more videos this season. Thanks.
most hits in a certain cut. Still working.
All right, that's pretty much all for this video. Thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing here, subscribe to my channel because like I said, I'll be posting more of my trips from this season coming up.